Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of the Bonus Points podcast. I'm Joe Garrett, being joined by Ollie Guy.
Hello.
Hello, Ollie.
I almost oiled that time.
Okay. For those that are new to the podcast, we had a brief stint, actually an extended stint, of saying oi oi Ollie at the end of every episode. Yeah. But then Ollie got embarrassed and said, no more fun on the podcast, so we're not doing it anymore.
This is serious stuff only. Serious artistic endeavours and nothing less than that.
And we are going to be discussing a serious artistic endeavour in today's podcast.
Yes, we are indeed. We're doing Dead Rising. I've put Dead Rising and its Deluxe Remaster because they're quite similar. They're also a bit different. So that's the way I'm kind of framing it.
I've only played the Deluxe Remaster.
So yeah, I know, but I've just got a feeling that's quite a lot of the time I'm going to be like, in the original, this happened.
That's fine.
Yeah.
That's fine. Like it's a remaster of the original. So like
deluxe remaster.
The original will be in context of deluxe one. They released one like 5 years ago that was just like a rubbish remaster. Like cheap remaster.
They had to do what the iPhone does, when they bring out a new one, they have to be like, the last one we did was rubbish. This one's great.
This is the Dead Rising Remaster Pro.
Yeah.
The professional remaster.
So what I've done for the Wikipedia article is smash together the original and the remaster articles. So I'm going to read that out for you now. Dead Rising is a 2006 action-adventure game developed and published by Capcom. Story follows photojournalist Frank West after he becomes trapped in a zombie-infested shopping mall in the town of Willamette, Colorado. On the 26th of June 2024, Capcom announced Dead Rising Deluxe Remaster featuring improved graphics from the original. It includes several changes, such as the ability to walk while shooting and new voice acting. The game released on September 19th, 2024 for PS5, Windows, Xbox Series X and S, with a physical version coming on November 8th. There we go.
So that's both of them merged together. Okay, cool. So I kind of hinted a little bit towards myself, but I guess let's kind of start talking about our history with the series in general. So I know we're both pretty different for our exposure to Dead Rising.
Yeah. So you want me to go first?
Go for it.
Okay.
There's more for you to say than me.
Well, I played the original one when it came out, and I wasn't much good at it. And I don't remember much about it, but I definitely played it. But then I got into it when they released Dead Rising 2. Then I've played that, finished that. Then I went back and finished Dead Rising 1. And I've also finished Dead Rising 3 and Dead Rising 4. And I was always a bit like, Dead Rising 3 is my favourite. But actually playing it now, I think Dead Rising 1 is my favourite. And that's where I currently am. Oh, also, I think I've played through Dead Rising 1 quite a few times, but I think in the original version, in this version, there's a bit added on at the end where you can like get the true ending of the game. But I think in the original, you had to go back to the menu to like get to that, which is why I never bothered doing it. And when you brought it up, I'd kind of forgotten about it. So yeah, I guess I'd only ever done that once, maybe, or if ever before. But that's that's everything. Yeah.
Okay, and then for me, I played the demo on Xbox 360 for the original Dead Rising, and then that's it. I've not played any of the... Actually, I think I played the demo of one of the other ones, or it was a DLC for one of the other ones. I remember there was like an army campaign. You had like a kid or like a girl with you or something?
Dead Rising 2.
Is that 2? Okay, so I think I played the demo of 2 as well. And as you can see, it left a very big impression on me by my hazy memories. But the demo of the first one did leave a big impression on me. That was like a demo that I replayed many, many times because it was a very generous demo, and also just the type of game it is quite sandboxy. It's like quite a fun place to mess around with. So it's a good setting for a demo where it didn't really matter. You didn't really have many objectives in the demo because it was a fun sort of mess around tool, I guess.
Yeah, it must have been a couple of areas you had unlocked, right? I think I remember the demo. You definitely had access to the entrance plaza, like with Colombian Rice Masters, like, you know, the coffee shop. Like that area you always come out of the security room into, that was definitely in the demo because I remember skateboarding around in there.
Yeah, I think it might have just been that. I think it might have just been that single area. Like you definitely didn't go outside, and I can't remember, like you didn't have the cinema or anything. So I think it was probably just that area. But it, like in my head, it was very different. Like the layout of the mall in my head from that demo was like just obviously from bad memory. Like I had it, I think I had somehow merged it to like a real life shopping center, which is what we call malls in the UK. Like it merged with like a real life place, and I had like that layout in my head. It was like much simpler than as it was in the game. But yeah, anyways, that's my history. So you gave the Wikipedia article. Do you want to kind of talk about what it was like loading up this game today, and maybe kind of talk specifically about the differences between the original version and the Deluxe Remaster?
Okay, so the first most obvious difference is the graphics. They're way, way better than they were in the original, to the point where I was like, it doesn't look that much better than the original. And I looked it up and was like, oh my God, that's what the original one looked like. Like they don't have any texture on their faces or anything. It's just like flat.
That's like the perfect showing that they like did the remaster right. When you're like, oh, this is basically how it looked. Yeah. And then you compare, like, it shows that they got like the tone and the vibe right. The fact that you weren't saying, oh, this looks so different, it kind of shows that they probably, to a certain extent captured what you remembered of the original. Yeah,
so the game, like, this is running on the RE engine. It doesn't mean it looks like a Resident Evil game. I would say it's kind of somewhere between Resident Evil and Street Fighter. Like, the characters are very larger than life. They have very large, like, expressive faces and huge bodies, or like, comically thin, or just like, they don't look like humans really at all. But not in a weird way either. Like, they've somehow managed to balance it where it doesn't look like... There's only one character that I think looks a bit odd, which is the other photographer, because his head is like really long,
really thin.
yeah. But it doesn't, it's cartoony. It looks cartoony, but also at the same time realistic. Also, one thing I definitely did notice straight away is that the old graphics were way more like pumped up and like saturated. Like the old graphics kind of reminded me more of like a Tony Hawk's kind of game, and this one's way more. I guess they're taking more of a step towards realism. So that was obviously the first big thing.
Yeah, I wonder with the increased fidelity, I wonder if that art style just didn't work at a certain point. I wonder if, like, once you kind of increase kind of texture quality to a certain level, it's going to lose that cartoony edge anyway, and you have better looking water and stuff. So I wonder if it just didn't work being that colourful.
Yeah. So that was like that's like the first big thing you notice. And then the second big thing I noticed is because of the auto saving, it's like a lot easier than the original game, like way, way easier. Not just because of all the other, so they've rebalanced it. So the game is easier to start and it's more difficult at the end. But also because of the auto saving, every time you change area, you get a save point. Whereas it used to be, you had to run back to the starting area or to a toilet to save the game. Which means that we'll get into this in a minute, but it means you have that thing of being like, should I run back and save or should I just keep going? So you end up being like, oh my God, I've not done a save for an hour.
Yeah, it's not just reducing how punishing death is. It's just changing the way you play the game, because you're not having to, because time is such an important factor in the game. You're not having to detour as much as you would have in the original. Yeah,
and I think the thing that mostly puts people off in this game is the timer. And it's like, I think it's completely objective. Like, is it objective or subjective? Where people can make up their own minds. I can never remember.
Subjective.
Subjective, where it's like, it's like we talked about Sword and Sorcery, more like the moon mechanic. It's like really interesting and really cool. And if they'd fully gone for it, it'd be more interesting. But at the same time, you can see why they didn't, and they kind of went back on it, which is the same as this game. Like, I think the timer is what makes the original game so unique and interesting. But at the same time, I completely understand why they were like, we should let up a little bit on this strict thing we've given ourselves.
Yeah, so in the sequels, is that like less of a factor or a non-factor then?
Yeah, so in Dead Rising 2, you only have one timer, which is just once every 24 hours. You'd have to make sure you take a vaccination. And then I think in Dead Rising 3, there is no timers. And in Dead Rising 4, there's nothing close to it whatsoever. So
there's a timer, but it's counting up. They went the complete opposite.
Yeah.
So shall we just see as we're on it, if I'm not taking you too much of what your train of thought was, do you want to just explain what the timer is? Because we haven't actually said what it is for those that have never played it.
Let's just quickly explain the whole game. So basically, you're playing as a guy called Frank. You're in a mall, and the game lasts for 6 real-life hours, which is like 3 or 4 in-game days. And everything, all the plot points and all of the opportunities and missions, side missions, things like that, they all happen at a certain time. So you're always looking at your watch and being like, the next thing is going to happen at 6 p.m. I need to make sure I'm in the right place at 6 p.m. And if I'm not, I will miss that opportunity. That doesn't end the game. It just means you've missed that opportunity. So if you miss a side mission, it's gone unless you restart the game. If you miss a main plot point, then the plot stops, but the game will carry on. Or if you don't manage to save someone, then they're gone. Like it's really built around making decisions that should be effective and permanent. So you have to make difficult decisions like, am I going to save this guy? Or am I going to do this mission? Or what most people do is they go, I can do both. And then they suddenly realize that actually you can't. Or maybe the case before is you couldn't because the save system wasn't as forgiving. So you would have to be making these decisions all the time. And with Dead Rising players, what normally happens is people will play through the game. They do one playthrough where they save every survivor and ignore the main story. Then they do one save through where they do all the story and ignore most of the survivors. So it's kind of making you pick between those two things. And then the game is also open world. So you're kind of becoming more and more knowledgeable in the game world as you're playing. So therefore, you're always getting better at it every time you play it. It's the same as any game. Like it's not a new thing, but they've kind of gamified it in that, okay, I know that if I go and save this guy at this time, I have enough time to run to this one. And I know that because there's a skateboard down there that I can take. And you kind of are learning the quickest route through the game. And if that's something that interests you... You're getting
stronger as well because the character, all of the stats and stuff carry across between like playthroughs.
Yeah, it has like roguelite elements.
Yeah.
So like, I think at this game, obviously it's not perfect. It has some awful problems, but I think that it will do a lot better in 2024 than it did in 2006. Because I think a lot of the things that people had a problem with, they're now like more understood or more accepted, or like, oh, actually, it's quite cool that it does that, rather than being like, I don't understand the structure of the game, because it's pretty poorly explained as well.
Yeah, I mean, that was before starting, because I did have those concerns, mostly because I'd heard other people talking about those issues or not liking the time stuff. And so I was basically just, I normally don't do this because I want to go in blind, but I was like, hey, like, what should I be taking? Like, I'm stressed about knowing there's time limits. Like, what do I need to worry about and not worry about? And you kind of eased my mind a little bit going into it.
Yeah, like it's difficult because I'm very experienced at the game and at all the Dead Rising games, but I think that this version is easy enough that you have to like really go wrong to mess up the timer. It feels like you would have to really... Oh, I've got a little thumbs up. They're back. The thumbs ups are back. I can't...
Oh, I think I turned mine off.
I should have turned mine off. But yeah, I think the timer is so lenient now that you'd have to really go wrong and make a really poor decision in order to miss a plot point. Maybe you could miss survivors here and there, like they're pretty easy to miss, but a plot point, I think you'd have to really struggle to miss that.
Like my thoughts on the timers is, I think it's a really interesting mechanic. I like what it's doing about where, especially on your first playthrough, you have all of these different objectives and you have to prioritize them because you won't realistically do them all. Like, even if you were really fast, you just don't have the knowledge in terms of routing to do them all. And the idea that you can like fail the main story but carry on and then you restart and you have the same character, like I really like all of that ideas. I just think there's a contradiction between that and the type of gameplay you have in Dead Rising. Because what I like about Dead Rising is like this silly sandbox. I like getting like masks and throwing them in zombies, or throwing pies at zombies and taking pictures and like messing around and experimenting with all of these weird things. Like, that's when I think of Dead Rising, I think of like big hordes of zombies, and I think of like messing around with all of these like silly things, like getting a golf club and hitting golf balls at zombies or running them over with a motorbike. Like, that's what I think of. And I think that doesn't align with the like, you've got to go quick. Because I found, because I was only going to have time to do one playthrough.
Yeah.
I realized like, oh, there's all this stuff I could do, but I spent most of my time just not even bother killing them most of the time, just running past them, or just like shoveling my way through. Like, that's what I spent like I felt like 80% of the game doing. and so I feel like it doesn't put the gameplay forward. Even though I really like that timer style, I just think it's in the wrong game.
Yeah. I think Dead Rising as a series has had the same problem as well, where it's like they don't know what to do. Like this game does so many different moods and so many different things, and I personally think it balances them all like in a way that you can't replicate it, because like the atmosphere is really tense, but it's also like quite funny, and like it is really fun, but it's also really horrible. But like no other games have tried to do that. So like Dead Rising 2 went really far into like the comedy side of it, and like all silly things like you could put on a deer head with like antlers and like pick zombies up, and it was all crazy. Then Dead Rising 3 was more like trying to be more of the like intense seriousness, and they can't really figure out that balance. But like, you know, if you could play Dead Rising and do what you want, and it wouldn't matter. Like if you just wanted to mess around, you could do that. There's nothing stopping you from doing that.
But I think the thing is because the mood is gradually unlocked as you go. So it's not like, oh, I can just like load up a save and mess around. Because if I start a new save, I've got to progress through the story until I get everything.
Well, you've only got to progress through. You've only got to progress through the days. So as long as you're playing it will. Yeah, unlock.
I guess you could just keep skipping time.
Yeah, but it's also like as long as you're just, you know, if you want to mess around with each item, because you unlock each area progressively, you'd be like, okay, day 1 I'm going to spend in here. Day 2 I'm going to go over here. Like it doesn't require the story beats to be complete. It's probably a couple of areas that'll be locked off. Like there's that Carlito base, but I mean it's just a hole in the wall. So, but it's like it's unlocked over time rather than over the story. It's just it's a weird structure that doesn't. I can see why they never did it again, but at the same time, it is interesting. Like I get what you're saying.
I think there could have been like a mission or a chapter in the game which is like, oh, a bunch of survivors. Maybe it's the beginning of the game. There's a bunch of survivors, and there is like you are choosing to save. Like you could potentially save them all, but it's like a difficult, stressful thing, and it's a moment in the game. You know, like an extended sequence, like a couple hours where you're doing that. And then after that, you can mess around or whatever. Or you can just mess around and there's a chance that like one will pop up in these different locations. And then you're like, okay, I'm going to quickly save them. Like, I feel like I would have enjoyed that more, because I do think that time mechanic did hinder my experience to go in all of the shops and test out all of the different weapons. Because if I did that, you know, I would end up running out of time.
Yeah, you would run out of time. But also like, don't be scared to fail. You can't experiment if you're scared to fail, you know, like obviously you're playing it in a 2-week period, but like say this was the only game you had, or like you only got a couple of games a year, this would last you. Also, after you finish it, you do unlock sandbox mode. So you do have like, you can just do whatever you want. Basically. I've not played it, but like you just do whatever you want. But yeah, like to me, I always think of the timer as just being like, it's the same for me as any other game where you have to make a decision. It's like, are you going to kill this guy or are you going to save it? Or save him. I don't kill him and then be like, oh, I wish I could see what happened if I saved him. It's like, I've made that decision now, so I'm going to move on with it. And for me, the timer is very similar, where it's like, I've made my decision, and my decision is to play with a golf ball rather than do what I've been told. And then I'm going to pay the consequence for that. Or in this game, you don't really pay a consequence for it because the autosaves. So, but before it would be like, you would die and be like, I've lost 2 hours of progress, which was like brutal. Which, like, now that I've played this version, I can't believe it was ever like that, because it is crazy.
I mean, it seems like that might be enough of a reason to play the remaster than anything else.
So.
Like that seems like the biggest improvement. So there are other improvements. Like I've looked it up online. The AI for the people that you're rescuing is improved.
Yeah.
Some of the navigation, they've added kind of like a compass on the top of the screen.
Yeah.
That's to help direct you where you want to go. Although I found that compass always confused me for some reason. I think it's because it always wanted to point you in like the direction of a door rather than the objective.
It does,
and so I always ended up just looking at a map and being like, okay, left, right. Like I'm doing it that way rather than using it.
Same. It used to have a big crazy taxi arrow. That was how they used to direct you around. But it was the same. It would always point you towards a door. But I just used the map and like But for the podcast, I played it 2.5 times as well. So like now if it says an objective somewhere, I kind of know where it is. So like I just know where to go.
Well, to be honest, by the end of one playthrough, I'd bring up the map and be like, oh, okay, it's in the second floor of this area. Like I know, not even the way, but like I know the way I go there. Like I know my route that I go.
Anyway, speaking of the map and the mall, I genuinely think the mall is one of the best gaming environments that's ever been made. Like, not only is it easy to navigate, it's like recognizable. Like, it looks like a real location, even though it probably would never function in real life. There is so much variety in there and so much stuff to do. And it's not like, so you have like the food court area, you have the outside, you have 2 outside areas, you have like a luxury shopping bit. And then it's like, but just because you're in the luxury shopping bit doesn't mean there's no food available. Like, that's what I like about it, is like, oh, there's a coffee shop in there. Like, yeah, of course there would be. So like, because it's so well designed, the things you're always looking for are almost always close by. If you kind of just think about it, you're like, oh, I did run past something that would help me 1 minute ago. And it will definitely, it's always going to be there. So, and also like the fantasy of running around a mall and just taking whatever you want. Like, that is so great. Is it skateboarding or cycling around a mall or driving a car? Like, it's
also nice that it's not a dilapidated mall or a rundown post-apocalyptic looking mall. Like, no, it looks like, the day before there were shoppers here, and then now the next day it's full of zombies and it's all pristine. They're still playing the music and making announcements, and all the lights are on. Like, it really does give that sort of wonder of like, oh, I'm going in places I'm not meant to be, and looking around the back, and I'm gonna grab all these CDs and just throw them all over the place because I can do what I want.
Yeah, it's so fun. Yeah, and also when it turns to night and the lights turn off, and it's like you're in there when you shouldn't be. And then sometimes you're in an area and the lights will turn back on. The buzz of the lights, like boing, like turning on, and it's like, this is so cool, like being in here. And the music starts up again. Yeah, really, really amazing location. Also, it doesn't feel like it definitely was, but it doesn't feel like it was made for the player. It feels like it already existed and you happen to be there. It doesn't feel like, oh, you can't see like the seams of being like, oh, we've made all these bits for a player. It's like, it just feels like a regular.
There are some bits that really feel like that really feel like they've not been designed for a player to play through them.
Are you going to talk about the special forces?
Well, no.
We'll get there. We'll get to those.
I'm talking about just the layout of the place is just, so one of the things that drove me mad is, so like, one of your kind of hub area is this security room that you're always having to bring survivors back to. Almost every main mission involves you going back there at some point. There's a place that you're constantly going back and forth between, but it's like a really just like needlessly long route to get there. We're going to go down a corridor, and then there's like just loads of zombies there, and then you go to like into the lift, and it's always just full of zombies, and eventually you're like, I'm not going to bother killing them. I'm just going to like whip round and try and press the button quick, and hope one like doesn't grab me. And then you're on the rooftops, and you have to go to like a vent, and so like, and you have to go through that same route so many times. And obviously, I was playing on a PC, you're playing on a modern console, but there's like loading screens between all of those different areas, and it just feels like, why? Like I even messaged you, like, do you eventually unlock like a shorter way to get here? Because this is so annoying. Every time I'm bringing back people, it's like, oh, I've got to bring them through that like warehouse place and the lift and everything. It just feels so needlessly laborious.
Yeah, it is long. It used to be longer as well, but in the update they changed it. So
really?
Before, there was no stairs leading up to the vent. There was just a block, and the survivors weren't clever enough to climb the block.
Yeah, you have to just climb up every time.
So you climb up, and you have to like shout, like, "Come here!" And they'll figure out how to climb up, and then the stairs obviously fix that. To be honest with you, it didn't really bother me how long it takes to get back. Like, if you know to jump over the top, you can get back. Like, quick.
It's not difficult. Yeah. Like, if it was like a challenge, that might at least be like interesting, and it just feels.
Yeah, but the challenge is that you're constantly, everything is constantly degrading, including you. So you need to be like, do I have enough health to make that gauntlet run at the end? And then if you don't, you need to be like, next time I leave this room, how do I make sure that I am ready, that when I get back, I'm able to get through that without getting grabbed or killed.
That's the thing, that it's not challenging, because there's not enough zombies to be a challenge. And you can, with the lift, if you whip it and press the button, once you get to the top, like all the zombies are gone. And even if there's a survivor that wasn't in the lift, they're just there with you now. Like, it's not challenging. It just feels like the game wanted me to clear them all out, but like why would I? Because they're there every single time.
And also, you got to think, like, in terms of it being a long time, is like, it's on a timer. So they're going to make you run through the room like this, because they want you to waste as much time as possible getting there. But yeah, I mean, of all the things that I think are wrong with this game, I never thought about the length of the that bit.
It was just it just really brought to my attention when you were saying about like, it feels like this wasn't designed for players. It was designed as a more. It's like, for better or worse. And I think genuinely, generally, the layout is really smart. The time when you kind of, at least for me, when I discovered like the equivalent of a fast travel system, like these underground tunnels that you can use, so you can have these shortcuts, and sometimes you're weighing the option of like, oh, if I go outside, there's these goons in a jeep that are going to keep running me over, but that's quicker, or do I go the long way around? Like, I think that's all done really, really well. It's mainly just that. And then also, I think one of the things is because this is in most areas such a faithful remake to the original, like some things like the way that all of the areas are split up with like loading screens is kind of showing its age a little bit. Like the loading screen, like it's all pretty quick.
It's quick. It's not the end of the day. The SSD is just like, it's just like zoop, like the bar just fills up straight away. Yeah,
even like I played a decent amount of this game on the Steam Deck. Even on there, it was like, I'm sure it took longer to load, but it was still pretty speedy. But it does create annoying things when you have like survivors following you and you're trying to get judged like, are they close enough for me to go through the door?
So in Dead Rising 2, they added an icon that was like a door, and it was like, okay, they're close enough to the door.
Yeah.
And then in this one, they didn't add it. Like, why did they add it?
and because it's 20 different loading screens, basically, if the person you're rescuing isn't on your screen, their health's just constantly ticking down. So there's times when I'd leave them like, oh, I'm going to leave them in this 100% safe place, no zombies back at this shop, no zombies even close, and then I can go off and do something, and I leave, and then they're like, their health's ticking down. I'm like, okay, it's like the things like that where it would have been nicer if it was all connected, but that's like not really a big downside here, but I guess it's just one of the clearer points where you can point to it and say, hey, this is a 20-year-old game, and they've put some paint on it, but it still has 20-year-old game design and 20-year-old technical difficulties brought forward.
Also, if I was designing it, let me do a little bit of armchair developing now, I would put something on the loading screen that's interesting to look at. Like, put the map there. Because every time I walk through a door, it just goes black, and then I open the map. Just put the map on the loading screen, so it's just there when you go through, as if you're looking at it, walking through the door. That would have been perfect.
To be fair, with the remake, the screens are so quick. It's
enough to orientate yourself, because I always open the map and check out like where I am, where I'm going.
True.
But yeah, all that aside, loading screens aside. Well, this is kind of to do with loading screens, actually, but I feel like this game is really deeply rooted in 2006, and like I really actually love it for that. Like the atmosphere and that is so 2006 coded, like the music and stuff and the style of it and how it looks. Like it, not only does it look like a Tony Hawk's game, it kind of feels like one. I don't know why that is. Maybe it's because I associate it in my mind with Tony Hawk's because it was around the same sort of time, but it really just has that feeling to it. I don't know if you thought it was similar.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely, especially in the cutscenes and the dialogue, really reminiscent of that time, and just the complete disregard of just logic and like what would make sense. It's just like, this is something that would be fun to do, so we will just do it because it's fun. And even sometimes when it's not fun, but it just feels like old school design, like you'll get into like a gunfight with like a man, like just a person. Yeah. And I'll be literally shoot like 30 bullets into them, and you just see the health bar like ticking down. And they're like not even reacting to my shots at all. That sort of thing. You don't really, even in a goofy game like this, you kind of don't really get away with that anymore. Well,
not only that, like if someone gets shot in a cutscene, it's like, oh my God. It's like, mate,
that matters. That's real. Yeah.
I just put 30 bullets into that guy. But I think for me, what I realized playing this, games can get away with enemies getting hit a million times as long as I've got a visible health bar. Like, then for some reason I'm like, oh, it's fine. But like, if they didn't have a visible health bar, I'd be like, why isn't this guy dying? But because you can see it, I'm like, oh, it's fine. Like, obviously we played Bloodborne, and I must have hit Lady Maria 300 times with my sword, and she was like, not even showed a single scar on her body. Like, she's just fine. But it's like, it's because I can see the health bar. I kind of allow it. It's the same with the gunfights in this game, though. It's like, there's a fight you do in a gun shop, and you just like stand behind a pile of leaflets. But for me, that's like fun. Like, even though it doesn't make any sense that a pile of leaflets could stop shotgun blasts, and I'm firing at a guy behind the counter who's like drinking wine. It's like, this is just a silly arcade game, and they fully lent into it. And I think it's better off for it. Because when Dead Rising 3, which is a bit more grim, it's like also a bit less fun, like actually quite substantially less fun when it's not as goofy. Yeah. I like all that stuff. I didn't mind. Like, it's silly that the guns don't do much damage, but also it's like the enemies have weaknesses. So if you know the weakness, you're not really thinking of it as I'm shooting him with a pistol. It's like I'm hitting him with a weapon he's not weak to. So I'm kind of fine with it.
I did find overall the bosses, the lunatics, is that what they're called?
Psychopaths.
So the psychopaths is like, I enjoyed a lot of the cutscenes, largely just because I like seeing their facial animations and just their faces look so bad. I enjoyed that, but like I don't think I enjoyed any of the actual combat in any of the boss fights, because it was always basically there was two ways it would turn down. Like, either it would be like, say, if I have a gun and it would be like, say there's like the cult leader guy with the sword, like, basically, I didn't get hit once. I just went in a circle and I'd shoot him with a sniper or a shotgun. And then as he get closer, I'd back. And I do that like for too long and then he's dead. Or it'll get to a point where it's like a closer range one and I just get a melee weapon and I just keep spamming it. And like they might hit me and I just tank the damage and keep spamming them and then they're dead. That's basically the two ways either of the boss fights went. And both of them felt like I was cheesing them in different ways.
I think the guns, they basically added way more guns and they're way more effective than they used to be. So like I think that's quite a big problem this game has, is like there's just guns everywhere now. And they're so good, especially because you can move and shoot. It kind of puts you at a big advantage.
You can just cheese every, but like, because I keep thinking like, okay, they've set up like this arena. I'm in like this supermarket, whatever, and I'm meant to be dodging this. Like, no, I very quickly just find a way to like cheese it.
Yeah, with the tanking the hits with the melee weapons, it's like you're able to do that because you brought in enough food to do, because that was your plan. Like, you've planned to do that. You can't just, if you just try and do it without having any medkits or anything, you will just die because they have so much health. But like, all you've done is you've just chosen the path of attrition and it's worked.
But to keep with like the Bloodborne example, like, yeah, you have brought in those blood vials and you've got your build and upgraded your sword. Like, you've been prepped for the fight, but you still got to like dodge and think during the actual fight.
Yeah, of course. And in this, and to say that you could win a boss fight in this game without dodging or healing would be absolutely insane, because obviously you can't do that.
No, you can. Like, you can just, like the supermarket fight in particular, I just spanned the same with the gun guy. Is I realized I'm obviously meant to be shooting whatever, but I had like one of those pipes, one of my favorite weapons in the game, just the long pipe, and I just went up to the counter and then just kept whacking him over the counter. And just
but he is not weak to guns, so you did the right thing.
Okay, but it
if
didn't.
You shoot him, his health doesn't. It doesn't.
I went just to the counter and kept hitting attack until he was dead.
Yeah, so like that was a lucky. Like, you figured that out, but like just by accident. But like all the bosses have like weird like things, like the clown. Like, he has like different colored balloons, and it's like if you shoot him when he's blowing up a certain balloon, his health actually goes back up. Or if you hit him while he's blowing that one up, so it's like there is things in it like that, but you couldn't just stand there and like not heal and not dodge. Obviously, in that one instance, you did because the guy was weak to probably like melee weapons rather than guns because he's in a gun shop. But most of the bosses are like, they're hard. The combat is difficult in this game unless you're really prepared, or you have loads of pizzas, which is what I always did. I would always go and cook like 4 pizzas and then bring them with me.
I always had loads of OJ. Like, orange juice weirdly heals you like 5 or something. Like,
it does. It does.
And it's right outside the security room. I'd always just go straight up there and just like fill up my pockets with OJ.
Yeah, I don't know why I always did that. I think the pizzas were funny. So I always thought it was funny because you get them out and they're smoking, like as if they've just been cooked. Yeah. And then you just eat them where you are. Which, like, I love the animations in this game. Like, I think I was thinking about like what are my favorite animations of like any games, and like so many of them are in this game because like they're completely functional. Like, they don't have anything else. It's like, oh, I'm eating, okay, I'm just smashing a pie into my face and I'm making a stupid noise. Or it's like, oh, you try on a piece of clothing and you just like do this like weird like little robot dance. It's like, what is going on? This guy's an absolute nutter. And also the impact moves when you get hit, they're all really good. Like, they don't always land the way you could tell they're meant to. Like, sometimes you glitch through something or like bounce off something, but like getting hit with something, flying backwards into a shelf, or like doing the spinning when you get hit and you spin through the air, like those animations still look really great and really impactful. And I watched the
my favorite move and animation is just the jump, like kick backflip, where you just do a big backflip and like kick their head off in one motion. I did that a lot.
I watched the developer diary for this game, and the director was like, "Oh, we did consider changing all the animations, but actually, like, we think they're so funny that we're just going to leave them." So like, they obviously know that they look like really outdated and stupid, but they're like, whatever, it's cool, it's cool. What did you think of Frank?
He's quite a hard character to like nail down. Like, say if I had to create like a dating profile and write down his personality, like I'm not sure where I'd really go, because he's like a good guy. Like, he's obviously cares and he wants to help people, but then he's also seems to be constantly doing it for his own gain. Like at the beginning, like you're like flying in the helicopter and taking pictures, and you're seeing like real people just getting killed, and like he's taking pictures, and there's not a moment of like, oh my god, this is horrific, people are dying down there. He's just like, great shot, like taking like these pictures. So he's sort of, and I think that might be like almost like an oversight, the fact that they haven't kind of rounded him out in that way. Yeah, I mean, he's a bit of a goofball, but I think he ultimately means well. Like, I definitely haven't created an attachment to him. Like, I don't like. I can see why. Like, I think he's a bit of clay that can be molded for whatever was needed for the game. I don't think they really fleshed out like this is the type of character they want to have. It's like, oh yeah, he needs to be into this because that fits like the plot service, and like, oh, he has to suddenly be really strong and athletic because we want to do these crazy moves, but it doesn't really fit his personality in any other way.
Yeah, he's way more athletic in the remake than he was in the original. In the original, he looked more or less like a regular guy, and in the remake, he's like absolutely jacked. Like, he's huge. He looks like a fridge. He's so massive. But
that probably explains his like moves a little bit. You know, like you can literally jump on like wall, kick off a wall to like dive on zombies and stuff. Like, it's ridiculous the stuff you can do.
Yeah, but I think, you know, you've hit on a good thing there, which is like, he's a sleazebag. He only does things for personal gain, but at the same time, like, you don't hate him. Whereas in Dead Rising, as the series went on, they changed his character to make him fully into like the sleazy end. So he only, in Dead Rising 2, he only cares about making money. He doesn't care about anything else. He's just like, I'm just here to take pictures. I just want to get the big scoop. And I always thought that was a shame, because like, even though he's not like a great character or anything, like, he's a bit of a quirky guy, and I always quite liked him. Like, as in, I think I just always like an everyman, and in Dead Rising 1, he kind of falls further on the everyman scale than he does as the series goes on, where he becomes like a washed up, like, I don't know, there's a bit of a, what do they call, like a character assassination in 2 and 4 of him. But yeah, I don't know, I like him, because there was also the whole thing about the fact that there was, because you know, we didn't even mention it, but you have a camera, you can take pictures. You get ranked on the photographs that you take, and there used to be like an erotic function on it. Well, not function, but like an erotic scoring thing on the camera, where it would be like, oh, how many ladies are in the picture? And then that was always like sleazy and gross. And then they removed that for this version, which I think like nothing of value has been lost with that. Did you ever see that in the original?
No, I don't really remember that.
So it's just like, you know, it's like a outtake photo, gore or brutality, whatever it's called. One of them was just erotic, and it was like, I don't know. I'm very, very happy they removed it. A lot of people obviously were up in arms about it, like censorship and all the rest of it.
Go woke, go broke.
Yeah, exactly. But I think it's fine that they did that. They did also change a couple of the lines in the game as well. There used to be a line, you know, the guy who is the butcher at the end, and he's like trapped Carlito. And then he's like, the war is never over for him. He has a line there. He was like, he thinks he's in Vietnam. And he's like, oh, you're a Vietnamese soldier, and like, you've stuck into my base, blah, 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 and tries to kill you. And in this game, they just removed all of that and made him be like, you're a mole, aren't you? Which, again, I think is like, it's fine. Like, it's the same thing. It's just not as like, there won't be anyone offended by him saying that. So like, that's absolutely fine as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I think it's fine, because I'm always in a weird place with this sort of like, it's not even censorship, but like of changing things, because I'm always much more up for it for something like a video game where it's a remaster and the original is still available to be played. So, you know, like you can, if you're doing a case study on kind of the way games portrayed, you know, females in the early 2000s, like you can still have that. It's more when it's like, oh, like Disney have like re-edited this film and the original is not available anywhere, like that, you know, like that. I kind of feel like, no, give a little bit of context to it and like a warning or something. Not that this would be bad enough to, I think, probably warrant that. I think this is its own product where, hey, we're taking this classic game and this will be like probably an entry point for new people. They probably did this as a bit of a lower budget remake compared to the Resident Evil ones to maybe kind of judge the reception to these games in the current market. Maybe this would determine whether they do a sequel or something. And so I think it kind of makes sense to kind of follow modern values with the remake. So
I think so.
I agree with you. I think in this case it makes sense.
Also, the originals run on PS5, Xbox Series, and they're still for sale. And they're like £7. So like they haven't taken them off or brought the price up or anything like that. So that's so cool. Anyway,
so if you want to take pictures of the bosoms, lads, you still got your place.
Carlito and the plot in general.
Oh yeah.
I feel like it threatened to do something quite cool, and it just didn't follow through with any of its like.
Do you mean
things.
like what did it threaten to do? That's
well,
cool?
it just had like themes of like greed, corporate greed, capitalism,
like the anti-American,
like, and then like there was like a military paranoia angle. There was even like a veganism angle with like the livestock thing, and it just didn't do any of it. And not only that, they were like the guy that was a villain. They were like, oh no, he was actually bad. They weren't like, oh, you know, he had a good. Frank got his story out there, and he, you know, changed people's minds or something. It was just like, oh no, he was evil and he went down for terror or whatever, which I think is a real shame. It's a real shame.
I think I had the exact same emotion as you, because the thing with the game is it sets up as like solve the mystery. Like it's all, can you, if you do all the missions, like you're going to unearth what is going on here. And so they really set up like there's this big mystery. And then you do get to the point where you basically find out that these zombies were created because they were essentially trying to create livestock because America's meat obsession is, you know, not sustainable. And so it all went wrong, blah, 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 blah. And you're like, okay, they're setting up something here. But then, it doesn't really lead anywhere interesting beyond there. And then I think the actual, like, to be honest, I think probably the final quarter of the game is by far the weakest part. And I don't really know at what point was that a thing you had to reload from the menu? Because I just played it until it ended. Because there was an ending, and then I played for another several hours, and then that whole section was pretty dire, to be honest.
Yeah, the way it flashes up your scorecard with like, you know, how many kills you got and stuff, that's the end. And then it used to be you had to go back to the menu to play the overtime mode, it's called, which takes you to the true ending, which is all just ridiculous because the game has 8 endings, and I feel like it's so easy now. You're going to struggle to not get the best ending, which is the one I'm assuming you got, where it's like Frank got his story out there, and it looks like he's going to die, but actually he's fine. You like fight a guy on a tank. You fight a guy on top of a tank.
Yeah, I fought a guy on a tank, and then it kind of just ended. I think he like screamed or something. Yeah, and then
and then it says, like Frank got his story out
there's just
there.
text at the end. Yeah.
So
that was a really unsatisfying ending.
Yeah, well, it's like the bonus mode ending. Like,
and that boss fight was just a like hand-to-hand combat boss fight.
Yeah, which the game's like not even good at doing. But yeah, I agree. That ending is so bad, and the worst thing is the special forces soldiers. Like, because they've made everyone smarter, they're now like, they can just stun lock you and kill you. And like the stun lock is so clearly a bug or something wrong with it that like there is no way that it's working as it's intended. Like if they wanted to kill you in a single shot, they would just make your health drain in one go. They wouldn't make you sit there and wait and be shot and stun locked. So these special forces soldiers turn up and they just shoot you, and you're just stuck on the floor like vibrating as they're all shooting you, taking turns firing at you. And like, I can't believe it got released like this. I literally can't believe it came out like this. Like in the old game, this final section, it was pretty cool, right? Because I don't know if you ever got killed. Well, you definitely did get killed by special forces, but you know they like throw you in a helicopter.
Yeah.
So in
That
the
was
old
cool.
game, in the old game at this point, you'd be like, "Oh, so you've taken all my weapons, have you?" And then it was like, what's that saying? Like, I'm not locked in here with you. You're locked in here with me. Because at that point, you're like, I know where everything is in this mall, and there isn't like I can easily outsmart you, and like I know where all the best weapons are. But in this game, they're so good that like it's just annoying when they take your weapons away because you can't do anything. I literally think it's a horrific blunder, and I really hope
they
patch
take
it.
away like basically all the zombies, so you don't have the fun of the zombies. You just have these special forces. They always, because you're going through these loading points, they're always respawning in the exact same positions every time, and you get their guns, which are like a proper machine gun. At first, I was like, "Oh, great, an actual machine gun!" But they're the biggest bullet sponges. The only thing about that machine gun is, as far as I could tell, there's no damage drop off or like reduced accuracy at range. And so what I ended up doing was, with all those special forces, I know where they all are, is I would just shoot them from like miles away, and then like they wouldn't even get close to them. And if I'm playing on the Steam Deck, I'm literally like looking at 2 pixels, like I think that's one of them. And like I could deal with them all easily, but it's just like a laborious thing. And if I miss one, I could get stun locked and killed by them. So there was no like, oh, they're stepping up the difficulty here, and I have to be really dodging and being smart. It's like, no, you just got to shoot in their central mass for a long time at range before they see you, and going through all these loading screens, they just keep respawning, and it's just like
It's
an
awful.
absolute slog.
It's hell.
And it's a shame
It's
that
hell.
was like my final impression of the game was what I played through.
I'm praying it's going to get a patch. Like, obviously, we're judging it based on what we played within these last 2 weeks, but like, it's like, I can't believe that Capcom, who have released so many good games recently, have released this ending. I think it's the problem is made further by the fact that the draw distance is way better. So like, one really easy way to notice that is in this version, if you take a photograph, you get so many more points because you can see so many more zombies that you used to not be able to see that many at once. And then because of that, the enemies can shoot you from like absolutely miles away because they're loaded in straight away. What I did in the end is I ended up blending 2 machine guns to make a massive machine gun, and that would kill the enemies in 2 shots each. And I was like, I'm just going to have to do that from now on because this is completely ridiculous.
Yeah, and you get the bazookas as well, which make it a lot easier once you get a few of those, or rocket
Yeah,
launchers,
but
whatever they
like,
are.
yeah, it's just not. It's so bad. I can't believe that it ever came out.
You're
like that.
completely in the mode of like, let me just get through this.
Yeah,
like that is
yeah,
your mind.
yeah,
You're
yeah.
not like I'm not playing for fun anymore. It's like, let me get to the other end of this. And I obviously didn't know that the other end of it was an unsatisfying escape sequence and boss
Well, I
fight.
think that bit where you run through the tunnel is quite cool. It's not very long.
Yeah, I get it. It's cool with how
probably
many
2 minutes,
zombies there
2
are.
minutes long. Yeah, and it's like,
Yeah,
oh my
yeah.
god, I'm completely invisible to them, and that's quite cool. I always had a bug with like the zombie walk mode. The zombie walk move you can do never worked. I don't know if you had that one.
What, when you're jumping on top of them, or
No, you unlock a move where you hold down the right bumper and Frank like walks like a zombie, and they just ignore him.
Oh, I don't think I unlocked that.
Yeah, so the unlocks
maybe I
as well.
did
They're
and
all
missed
done. All the unlocks are done at random, so you get different ones at different times.
Okay, yeah, I don't think I got that one.
Yeah, one change they made from the original is they made the rolling dodge one of the first ones you get. It used to just be like, I hope you get it at some point. But yeah, so that never works. Like the remaster, considering it's a 20-year-old game, like it is pretty buggy. It's quite surprisingly buggy. I had another one as well where my second playthrough, you should probably see it in the video actually, I killed all the convicts and they respawned instantly, but only the driver. So if I go out and kill the driver, when I go out again, he'll be there again rather than waiting till midnight coming back. It's like, he's just always there. You never disappear.
Yeah, so just to explain that's the big outside area, which for most of the game is like the quickest way to get anywhere. There's this group of people in a Jeep with like a turret on the back, like a Halo Warthog, basically, that run you over and gun you down. The most insane music plays.
It's amazing.
The whole
I
time.
honestly think it's the best needle drop ever in a game. Like it is like pure fear when this song comes on. You're like, because you don't hear any music up to that point either, like that. You're like, what is this music? Why does it sound like it's playing out of like a megaphone? And then there's just these 3 guys like, oh, another victim for us, and they're like driving around,
Like,
and you're not equipped to beat them.
It's great.
Yeah, it's
you're
really
not equipped
good.
to beat
It's really
them,
good.
and then eventually, like I get to the gun shop, I get like guns, and eventually I overcome them. I'm like, this feels great. I finally took out those guys, and now I have like the outside open to me. And then they respawn.
I don't know why they respawn. They respawned in the original as well. I don't know why they respawn. It's so annoying.
It makes no sense. And it's just the same people and the same song comes on. It's just the exact same.
Yeah.
They respawn. None of the other bosses
Psychopaths,
respawn.
yeah,
But
they
like the
don't
most
respawn.
annoying ones do. And it makes no sense. And it's just, and then I'm like, next time I'm like, do I bother killing them again? Because it's going to take a bunch of time. It's like, no, I'm just going to try and leg it through the trees with all my survivors and just hope they don't get me. And if they do, I'll probably just reload my save. Like it's just so annoying.
So annoying. So annoying. I wish they changed that for the update. Because they made a lot of changes. I've got a list of changes. I made a note of some ones I didn't think we'd comment on, which is that the survivors now have moods. So if you do something to improve their mood, they'll help you. But if you press start, so if you get survivor and you press start and you look at the survivor, you can see what things they like. So like, oh, this guy likes cookies. So if you give him cookies, when you run past something, he'll be like, oh, there's a weapon hidden in that tree. Or like, oh, there's a good thing to take a photograph of. Which like they did every so often. But if you do something that they like, they'll do it way more often. Which I thought was quite cool. But it does feed into the problem that there's too many guns, because they'll point out where the guns are as well. So it's like, you're always just absolutely armed to the teeth. Another big thing they changed, which is a massive improvement, is you take pictures of these things called PP stickers, which, PP, that give you a big boost in experience points. You used to not be able to see them unless you were using the camera, but now you can just see them. And it's like so much better, so much easier to see them all. And also the police firing, the zombie police that fire at you, they didn't used to exist. But it's just another vehicle for them to give you more guns. So it's easier because they're everywhere.
Pistol, I tend to prefer a melee weapon over that pistol.
Yeah, it's not very good. It's not very good. But like, yeah, I mean, they're firing the guns, so it's literally like making noise.
I feel like those policemen pointed out kind of another flaw of the game. It's just the fact that it's always the exact same zombie spawning the exact same position every time. Like every time it'd be like, oh, I know there's going to be the policeman with the gun here. Oh, I killed him last go through. Like the fact that it's so, it feels very static. Everything's exactly as it is. Like, you know, I could pick up a health item and it's like, oh, I want another one. Let me just quickly go out and load and come back in and I can pick up another one. Like everything, it just feels so unaffected by you being there, because it's like a set. Everything resets every time you leave.
Yeah, there's always the Hawaiian shirt zombie in the entrance to the security room with a knife. He's always there, which like I think for the weapons, it's fine. It doesn't bother me. I didn't actually realize they respawned every time you entered the area. I thought they respawned at like midnight. I didn't really notice, but I do think it's like just silly that the zombies are always, considering how many zombies there are, why are they always in the same place? Like there's always that policeman standing outside the security room door with his nightstick, and it's like, oh, I know I'm gonna have to run there, wait for the survivors to appear, and then I'm gonna have to kill that zombie while I'm waiting because he's.
When you get to that area, like where there's like the courtyard, like near where like the gym save point is, and it's like, I know there's gonna be the policeman there with a gun near like the middle of that like courtyard.
Yeah,
like, you just learn where they all are. Then in that area that's still kind of under construction by the gun shop, it's like, I know there's gonna be two policemen guy there with like the with the guns in that corridor, and I know you know exactly where I'm talking about.
I do. The another thing they changed, which I don't think is as good, is the UI. It used to be really like a news report. So like all of the little sound effects and the little UI elements all look like you're watching like Sky News or something, and they've sort of like half changed away from it. So like it kind of still looks like that, but it just generally, I think it looks worse. Like, you know, when a survivor dies and it says like Joe Garrett is dead or whatever in the middle of the screen, it used to be like a news flash, and it was like crazy at the beginning when all the survivors were dying and you were like, everything is slipping out of control and it's flashing up, everyone's dying, and now it's just like a little like boop, and it's like, okay, it's not as cool. What else have I got in my negatives list? Just that it just doesn't feel as scrappy anymore, I guess. But all that said, I would still rather play this over the original one. So yeah, I think despite all the things that are wrong with it, which I agree with you, this game has a lot of things wrong with it. I feel like the sum of its parts is so strong and it's so unique that I actually enjoyed this game more than I thought I was going to. And I like Dead Rising, but I had so much more fun with this than I thought I was going to, because being in the world, experimenting and the fact that you get rewarded meaningfully for experimenting.
Yeah.
It's fun, you know, like it's not an immersive sim by any stretch of the imagination, but it's like, you know, you're running through a restaurant and you see that you can turn the oven on and you're like, why can I turn the oven on? And then you're like, oh, I can get a frying pan. And you like put it on the oven and then it's like 2,000 points. It's like, oh, great. Like, and there's lots of little things like that. Like, did you do the Japanese tourists survivors?
Yeah, you got to get a translation book.
You got to get a
to be able to
translation
talk to
book.
them. Yeah,
It's great. And if you don't have it, they just run off. And it's like things like that.
Well, it's right next to where they are.
I know it's right next to them. I know it's
Yeah,
right next to
yeah.
them. But like, if you didn't pick it up, they would just leave, and then you would not be able to speak
Yeah.
to them. But there's all those silly little things that make me.
I also
really like the
something
game.
that I really like is that there's a lot of things that you pick up, but it'd be like a teddy bear or like this. I went to like the toy shop and got like this glowing toy sword.
Oh yeah.
And I gotta hit an enemy with it, and it just basically doesn't damage them. And it's like, well, yeah, well, it wouldn't. Like, I like the fact that like everything isn't like equivalent, and like there's some things that are just rubbish. And like a lot of the times, I'll pick something up and I'd be like, well, how will this be a weapon? Like I picked up like jewels from a jewelry shop, or like,
Yes.
how's this going to be a weapon? And he starts like throwing them on the floor, or the zombies like falling over and hurting themselves. So I'm like, okay, I guess that's how it's a weapon.
Did you,
like, I like the fact that there's just stuff that is only there because it's stupid to play around with. But like even some of the things that like you think would be powerful, like the hammer, and it's like it's just too unwieldy, like it takes too long. It's never useful, but it's just like ridiculous.
Yeah, Parasol was great. If you had survivors, you just run along with it, and the enemies are just getting pinged out of the way. But
well, like
if you
the
have,
bench, like the full like 3-seater bench, like
Yeah,
you're just
yeah.
like what?
did you know
taking everyone
it
out
blocks bullets? So if you turn,
Oh, really?
bullets hit it, they don't damage it. Yeah, one of the survivors told me that. I didn't know that, but he said it blocks
Oh,
bullets.
you gave him a cookie. That's why.
Yeah,
They're giving you all the tips.
Oh, what was I about to say? The jewels, if you get a book that makes thrown items explosive, turns it into like cluster grenades because all the gems
Oh,
explode
really?
individually, so you can just throw
The
them.
jewels were strong. Like I
Yeah.
Well, should we talk about what's your maybe give me your top 3, like either favorite or just most used practical ones.
Oh, most used, easy. All 3 things you can get in the entrance plaza. The main area you start in. No, not entrance plaza. Paradise Plaza, the main place you go to. Uzi is on top of the veranda, the blue veranda outside the toy shop. Katana
Thanks for
is
that
on,
tip. You helped me out with that one.
Katana is on the veranda outside Colombian Roastmasters, and a skateboard. And they were my 3 things. Like I would just skate across the park as fast as I possibly could, and also skating through zombies. Like you just push them out of the way. It does damage the board, but it's like that was my main build. Oh, and I also had a book that made bladed weapons last 3 times as long, so my katana would last ages. And if I picked up the mini chainsaw, that would also last a really long time. But that's like another thing that like I learned just from playing the game is like when you do that scene where you fight the clown, if you pick up the chainsaw and then interact with the roller coaster to turn it off, the chainsaw respawns. So then you can get 2. It's like those little things that make me really like the game. It's just like I feel like I've learned so much by just playing it. Yeah. What was your go-to?
I mean, mine are really boring. 2 of just the classic that I'd always just get a lot of is the pipe I mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
It's just like a one-hit kill, swing pretty fast with a pretty long reach. For first I was using like a dumbbell, but then once I found the pipe, I leaned to the pipe. Then also just I quite like the mannequin body. Like there's mannequins
body
you can get.
is really good. Yeah.
And so I would like just get the mannequin and either hit it a few times or throw it so it breaks apart. Like forget about the limbs, but the mannequin body was really good. And then I used just kind of the basic sniper and like shotgun quite a lot. And then any like throwable that would take care of a group, I'd often kind of just, like we were talking about like the jewels and stuff I would use as well. Like kind of whenever I needed them. I'd always had like a few guns in my back pocket. Like normally, like I'm gonna have them there just in case, but I never use them because I'm saving them the whole time. Because you know what I'm like. I spent a lot of the game using the pipe. It's so funny. I think I mentioned it to you. Is my soundbar broke for my PC, and I played most of this on PC at home. And it was basically I had a subwoofer that broke. This is ages ago. But it didn't really matter because I didn't really play PC games much. But it was really annoying me here because the sound was just awful, and I didn't like wearing headphones. I was like, you know what? It's about time I should buy a new soundbar because the one that broke had an old iPod mount on it. It was that old.
So I remember the one.
Yeah. So I got a new soundbar, and with its own like little subwoofer. And the first time I hit a zombie with a pipe, I was like, "Oh, that sounds great! This is really transformed my experience." I was just hitting everyone with a pipe because I knew the sound so well with like the old one. And I was like, "Oh, I can really feel the bassy impact every time I whack a zombie in the face with this pipe."
Great, that's great. I mean, the game's got really good feedback. Do you know what it used to do? Is like it used to do that like hit stop thing Capcom games used to do, where like you would hit a zombie and it would like freeze for like a second. And they removed that for this version, and I think they might have removed it because I remember people complaining about the frame rate of the remaster in 2016 because it did that, and it was like it's not the frame dropping; it's like a choice.
I guess it's much more seen as like kind of fighting games and stuff that do it. So maybe
definitely.
in this sort of third person game, should probably say that the game ran mostly okay. There was a few notable areas where you would get a frame rate drop, but for the most part, it seemed to run pretty well. I will say, because I never spoke anything about the looks of the game. I know you mentioned earlier. Like, I think it looks really nice. Like, I don't think it is up to the same level as kind of other games in the RE engine. Like, it feels like not a million miles off, but you know, it doesn't look like Resident Evil Village, you know, for example.
No,
like it's not that level, but like that's fine. Like I think like I'm always an opponent of like, don't spend another 2 years making it look better. Like get it out and then make something new. So I think like especially the facial animations, which is where there's probably the most work done. I think they're weird, but I think they look really good, and so I think it's kind of got it up to acceptable modern standards. But it doesn't really stand side by side with modern AAA games.
No. But I guess that's why they said it was a deluxe remaster, not just a. It's like slightly better than just releasing it again, but not, not a full blown remake.
No, I'd say it's probably a lot. I mean, if you do it side by side, like just the lighting improvements on their own, like it's a big jump from the one that came out 17 years ago or whatever. It's a big jump from that, but not quite up to like full modern standards. I think especially some of like once it got darker, like the outside area at dark didn't look that great.
It's just really dark.
Really, but like like very little contrast. It just didn't look great, and like some of the reflections weren't great. But like overall, like I think it looked nice and good for Steam Deck as well. Like surprisingly, considering how many zombies are on screen, like I didn't even have to, because I have obviously on Steam Deck you have full PC settings, so I had full control, and so I was like looking up guides for like what settings to do, and they're like, oh, put low for the amount of zombies. I was like, I'm gonna put it on medium, and it was fine. I was getting about 45 FPS, so it's like surprisingly good Steam Deck game.
Yeah. Do you think it's time we got another Dead Rising game?
I mean, I've got like 3 to play if I want them. So
yeah, true. I think it's been.
I can't really. I don't know the state of the franchise as it is now. Really,
I think the last one was maybe in 2013, 2014. Frank's Big Package was the last one, which is like.
Is that the Christmas one?
It's quite a good theme. The one thing the game does have going for it is it's got quite a good theme, which is the Christmas, like shopping at Christmas time. So there's lots of like gnomes, weapons, and things like that. The rest of the game was not. It didn't have any timer mechanic. It was kind of played more like a Dynasty Warriors game than Dead Rising, like because you could decimate enemies because you could make lots of different things. It wasn't that good. So I think we could get another one. Maybe they should make just a full blown roguelike game at this point.
Yeah, without the timer mechanics. I like the death. Or you could mess up in some way, but
death permanent would be the thing, I guess.
Yeah.
I'd like it to come back. Anyway, questions. Let's quickly whip through these. Comic Sam's the Great on YouTube said, unless there's anything else you want to say, Joe, before I do this.
No, go ahead.
Okay. Comic Sam's the Great says, fun fact, Capcom wasn't the primary developer for this game. It was Neobards, and they made it in only less than 2 years. Neobards is currently working on Silent Hill F. So there's a little bit of trivia for you.
Zombie specialists.
Yes. Well, funnily enough, I played another Neobards game. Which Resident Evil Resistance, it was called. And it was an add-on for Resident Evil 3, which came out 2018. And it was an asymmetric multiplayer game. And it was actually pretty cool, but it just didn't have any support. They never patched it. It was just a mess. But it was like, you'd have 3 survivors who were like different classes, and then you'd have the mastermind who was watching like through CCTV, and they would be like placing zombies like like an XCOM, like placing traps and zombies and stuff. You had to try and get through the level. It was pretty cool, but I remember Neobards making that, so I guess this is a huge step up for them. And then they're gonna be making Silent Hill, which is cool as well. It's King Kong XX 9038 on YouTube says, which area of the mall is your favorite and why? And then says, mine has to be Movieland. Oh, sorry. I always thought it had a creepy atmosphere, and when the True Eye cult showed up there, my God, I was shivering in my Mega Man boots. Have you got a favorite?
No, that was great. Yeah, that whole, when the cult shows up and like before you know what's going on, and there's just these like groups of people just standing around with masks, you're like, what is going on? Like that was a cool moment. Like, as I said, the final boss fight for me was a big whimper because it's just one like completely cheese, but that was cool. And then getting like the sword at the end. For me, it's like I can't remember the name, but like probably the biggest section, the one with the roller coaster and all like the big inflatables and
Wonderland.
Like that. Yeah, Wonderland. That area was just cool, just because it was mad, and I'm just like, I wish this place was real and I could go to it. So it looks like a lot of fun.
Yeah, well, apparently the because you find the 2 Japanese tourists in that section. Apparently, they were inspired by the developers going to a real mall in America to do research, and that area was like where they actually went. So that's why they put those 2.
So they were the tourists.
Yeah, that's why they put them in there. My favorite area was probably the Alfresco. Was it Alfresco Plaza, which is like the outside bit. That's not the park. It has
is that the bit I was talking about with the security guard with the garden, like with the gym?
The gym,
and
and
the
the
fountain
shop
and stuff. Yeah,
always worth running through there. It's got a good food shop. It's got an Uzi. It's got a chainsaw shop, and the gym. You can get so many PP in there. You can get you can run on the treadmills. They're worth like 2,000 each. You can punch the punching bags. They're worth like 2,000. Take a photo of every wall, and they're all worth like 2,000. So like, it's always worth going through there.
And like probably one of the quickest, probably about as less than the remaster, but like one of the quickest detours to save because it's just right on the main path. There's the save point there.
Yeah. So yeah, that's my favorite. Rob Klober on YouTube asked about this apparent censorship drama, which like we've covered. It doesn't bother me. I think it's all good things they've changed. So, and the original's still available. Right, this is a good one. Flaky on Discord said, Dead Rising is all about using anything as a weapon against zombies. So if the zombie apocalypse comes, what are you grabbing in your house to protect yourself?
One of my dogs, just like hold it out and then like bite their way through them.
Dogs, yeah. I don't think the ferrets that I've got would be much good. Maybe I could use them like nunchucks. Yeah. Tie their tails together.
Wasn't that in like Kung Pao?
Kung Pao, yeah. It's like
wasn't
chipmunk or something, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I've got probably like a fireplace poker to give the real answer. That would be that one would sound good through my sound bar, like or like a shovel, like doyle.
Frying pan, bacon tray. I think if I could skateboard well, skateboard would be the ultimate because like you can swing it and also you can ride it. It's a 2-for-1. Also, I've had this theory for quite a long time that if there was ever an apocalypse or anything else, I would stockload loads of cookies because like cookies are crumbly or they're soft. Both of those things are good. And if they go stale, they go one or the other way. So it's like they're never going to be bad. You can just stockpile them and they'll always be nice.
I just love the idea of one time like I'm in the house of you and you're just sitting there on the sofa kind of just gazing off in the distance in silence for a bit. And I'm like, Ollie's like, oh, sorry, I was just thinking about stockpiling cookies and
that's mate, that's the best zombie apocalypse food, is it not?
I mean, probably like cans of beans or something would,
it's not
in the
fun,
long
though,
run,
it's
help you out.
I think the can opener broke, you'd be screwed as well.
So we didn't speak about, you said about the skateboarders, we didn't speak about the vehicles. They're kind of goofy, like they control pretty bad, especially the motorbike. But it is cool when you go to the underground section or the car park and there's just like the most bonkers amount of zombies, like still impressive to this day, the amount of zombies on screen and just plowing through them all and, just completely like destroying them. Like, because they have like a whole zombie count thing for like how many zombies you've killed. And it basically is how much time have you spent in those tunnels, because any other time on the surface just pales in comparison to the amount you can just kill in like one corridor, like down in the underground area.
Yeah, I think there's like 53,500 something amount of zombies. And if you do kill that many, they stop spawning. But you have to kill that many.
Okay.
But it was
Because
referenced in Left 4 Dead.
Yeah. It was like an extra one, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's like written on the wall. Yeah, it's like, isn't it by like F West or something? It's like almost his name.
Well, no, I think it was I think they did an achievement, because I think there was an achievement in Dead Rising for killing that many, and then in Left 4 Dead you had to kill that many and one, and then you got an achievement in Left 4 Dead. I believe that's how it was.
Right. Yeah. Cool. I mean, I got one more bit of trivia for you, which is the people that made Day of the Dead, the zombie film set in the shopping mall, tried to sue Capcom, but the court threw it out by being like, you can't copyright fighting in a mall, which is what they tried to copyright. So Capcom got away with it.
That is mad that they tried to
copyright. Yeah.
Like a setting.
Literally. Okay, shall we go to the list?
Let's go to the list.
Did you know we have a Patreon? Maybe you're unsure what that is.
Patreon allows you to support us directly, and in return you get exclusive stuff. Access to our Discord server, behind-the-scenes content, and an exclusive podcast series.
Your support means we can up our production and continue making fun videos. You can join us at patreon.com/thebonuspoints. And it has a free trial too.
Woohoo! Right, so Dead Rising is going to be the 74th game that we are going to be adding to the list.
Big 7-4. I guess we'll have to see what happens at 75, won't we?
We will do. You're such a tease, Ollie. You're such a tease. All right, we're going to end the podcast. There's the big surprise. We were trying to keep it quiet.
I couldn't help myself. I had to get it out. Okay, before we place
planning it for years.
Before we place this on the list, is there any final word or words you'd like to say on Dead Rising?
So I kind of said a little bit to you just now. It's like I'm a little bit worried that the conversation veered too negative, because like there's more issues with this game that I could pick at this game for a long time with just little issues for it. You know, a lot of it has just because of how old the game is, and as much as we like to say games used to be better and you didn't need up-to-date updates and all of the microtransactions and stuff, you know, ultimately games are better now than they ever have been because they have all of the knowledge, they have much less technical restrictions. So ultimately, on the whole, games have been getting better. So you could nitpick a lot, but I think one of the things that you kind of mentioned a few times that's kind of harder to summarize as pointing out loading times is a tone and a vibe and a feeling that a game gives you. And I think this game has a lot of character, has a lot of personality. It's kind of one of one, even within its own series. It kind of seems to stand on its own. There's a reason why it's been remastered twice, you know, once like a straight, like basic one. And then now there's a reason why, you know, this is a franchise that's had 4 games, and the original one still has such a special place in people's hearts. And I went in relatively fresh to the series and to this game, and I can say it's not just nostalgia. I picked up on a lot of that. Like moment to moment, I wasn't always having fun, and I often did get frustrated, and I felt I did spend too much time running through the place rather than spending time playing in the place. But I still did have a lot of fun, and I always kind of wanted to see like what weird scenario the game was going to come up with around the next corner.
Yeah, I think obviously I agree with you. I think the sum of its parts is just so strong that I'm still surprised by this game every time I play it. There's always something, I will find something or learn something and be like, oh, I didn't know that I could do that. Which, like, it's enduring, but I do think, I mean, I played it 2.5 times. I've had enough. I've had enough of it. And I do think the special forces, that is a particular problem that needs to be fixed. Like, I was going to say there's no problems in this game that are big enough that would make you stop playing. They're all just annoying little things, but maybe the special forces is too far. in that direction.
If the special forces came towards the beginning or even the middle of the game, and I wasn't doing it for the podcast, I'd be like, oh, forget it. The fact that you can taste that the ending of the game is around the corner, that probably is enough just to be like, oh, I've got to get through it. I'm so close to the ending. I got to just get through this. However way I can cheese or sneak or like glitch my way through this, I'm going to get past these guys just to see how this is all going to play out. And then doing that and then ultimately getting a disappointing ending was pretty tough.
Hopefully they patch. But obviously they haven't for this list. So for now, we are putting it on the list with that in mind. Okay, so I think for me personally, I'm pretty strong on it being around 23. I've got a lot of respect for this game, and I did have a lot of fun with it. Obviously, we sat here and nitpicked it, but at the end of the day, it's really unique. There's nothing like it. Capcom are my favorite developer as well. Like, this game kind of sums up why they are. Like, their design philosophy is always like, as long as we make the action fun, the game will be fun. And this game is completely full of fun actions. Like, whether it's combat or it's the mission types or it's just playing around and like discovering things that you can do, all of them are fun. So, and also like the wacky humor is also partly why I love Capcom. They always make funny games. So yeah, for me, this is like, it kind of, obviously it has its problems, but it kind of epitomizes what their games are designed like. So yeah, 23, 24, 25 around there somewhere.
Yeah, so just for audio listeners, so 23 at the moment is Pikmin 4, then Yoshi. It's kind of the little Nintendo trio. We got 22 Earthbound, 23 Pikmin 4, and then Yoshi's Island at 24. Did I say 24 twice? Pikmin 4 is 23.
We used to have a Nintendo stamp of approval there. I don't know what happened to that.
It lost the stamp of approval.
It did.
Big old zombie game came and ate it.
Yeah.
Ate it all away. Yeah, I mean, that's not like a million miles higher than I would go, but that is higher than I would go. I guess I would just, if I had free choice and wasn't going to switch anything around and had to slot it in somewhere, I'd probably slot it in, I think, just under the original Alan Wake. So it would be 32. Yeah. So Alan Wake's at 31. I think I'd slot it just above Skate, which is similar in sort of ways of, it was the pioneer of a new franchise, but ultimately a flawed but interesting game. So yeah, that's where I would choose to have it.
What about if we put it one above Alan Wake, just because I feel like Alan Wake has been superseded by Alan Wake 2, but I don't feel like Dead Rising has been.
So you want Dead Rising one above Alan Wake?
Yep.
And you don't, because we can meet more in the middle if you want. Like,
I'm like looking at Indica, and I'm like, Indica was like, it could go above Indica, but I think What Remains of Edith Finch is where it's going to struggle.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I mean, I've said where I want it to be. I think Indica, also not a perfect game, but I think it kind of matches in its uniqueness.
I
like
so
today, I think Indica, like Indica was much shorter, and I think Dead Rising, because even though it's not a long game, it had sections that dragged, and Indica never had that. And like Red Dead Rising, as much as I enjoyed it overall, it had sections that I was kind of just trying to get through, which I didn't get with Indica or Alan Wake so much.
Should we go one above Alan Wake, just because Alan Wake 2 is superior and Dead Rising 2, 3, and 4 are not superior to Dead Rising 1?
Yeah, Alan Wake's getting his time center stage in his TV show in the top 10. So Alan Wake's we have Alan representation in our list already.
Well, there is 2 Dead Rising films.
Dead Rising films?
There's 2, yeah, but I'm sure you can imagine the quality of those mid 2000s straight to DVD numbers.
Well, are they like American or Japanese?
Yeah, they're American, yeah.
Oh God!
They're like based on like, it was like when Dead Rising 2 hit, and it was like combo weapon, the paddle with the chainsaws on, and it was like they basically just made a film about that paddle.
Okay.
Okay. So currently, then, if I do 35 to 30, we've got Good Boy Galaxy, is 35, Jet Set Radio Future is 34, Skate's 33, Alan Wake's 32, Dead Rising's 31, and Indica is 30.
Not too shabby for a game. When did the original come out? 2006?
2006.
2006. For a game that's been only minor tweaks, aside from the graphics. It's among good company. To be fair, it's among a little series, like a little group of games from that era. I know Alan Wake was a little bit later on, but like Dead Rising, Alan Wake, and then Skate, it seems like that era has a certain area of the list it reaches.
It's comfy there. And you know what? Of those three games, I'm happy Dead Rising's the top one. That's the one that I would remember from that era and be like, that's never been surpassed. So
yeah, I think for me, Alan Wake would be, but you make a good point. Like Alan Wake 2 has changed the way I look at Alan Wake 1 now.
Yeah. I really, it's very difficult to think about, but like it's difficult to like conceptualize, but I do think if they had stuck to their guns a bit more with the difficulty, we might be talking about Dead Rising more positively. Because when it does have the harsher time limit and the harsher save system, it is just more interesting because it's more tense. It's not just like, oh, I had to run through here 10 times, which is what it's like now. It's like, I had to run through here 10 times and I was fighting for my life every time I did, because if I died, that's it. It's, as we said with other games, it's like if they really lent into what they were doing, then it's always more interesting than kind of watering it down.
Yeah, I think it would need, for that to be interesting, it would just need more adaptability. Like it almost felt a little bit like Groundhog Day, the way that everything resets every loading screen was, even if it would be, they've set up this difficult scenario, it's like, even though I only played through the game once, I felt like I'd played through every little mini section of the game many times. Yeah. So even if it was difficult, it's like, well, I've learned my route that I go. I've learned where the zombie with the gun is. I've learned where the good weapon is, not from playing the game multiple times, just because everything resets to the exact same position every time. That kind of removed a lot of the challenge. And for the actual main story, the actual case, is I always had like so much time for that, and it was always just about how many other side stories could I do and how many other people could I rescue in that time. But like there was never any doubt of me completing the actual case that I had to do. Yeah,
and also because you level up faster now, like probably twice as fast, maybe even quicker than that. It used to be like, do I have time to get this survivor because I really need them because I need to level up? Whereas now it's just a bit like, do I feel like it or not? I don't know.
Yeah.
But also I can't talk about Dead Rising because I think it's really cool. What you've just said is a really good point. Like you're not reacting to the game, you're predicting it. So like you're not having any reactionary moments. It's like, oh, I know where everything's going to be. I put in my notes that you're becoming a master of your circumstance, but actually what you just said is way better than that, which is there's no reaction. You don't react to anything. You're always holding all the cards almost.
Yeah, and even like you learn your way around where the shops are, but also the map just tells you what every shop is. Like you can just see like, oh, if I want to find, I need food or I want weapons or an outfit, books, whatever. Like you don't have to look. They're just all on the map as well. You can just find them that way.
Yeah. Well, I suppose that's kind of like fine because that's what a shopping center map would be like.
I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying that for your saying that you're not reacting to the world, like you always, even early on, you can create a plan.
Anyway, Dead Rising 31. Well done. Would you like to hear what's coming up?
Yep, let's hear what's coming up in the future.
Because we had a little change, didn't we, after I ribbed you for picking Papers, Please at Halloween.
You embarrassed me. You made a big point of me picking the game for Halloween, and I chose Papers, Please.
Well, since then, Silent Hill 2 remake's come out, and it's good. People like it. So we've decided to do that instead.
So back-to-back remasters of spooky games. One more spooky than the other, I guess.
Well, we've got back-to-back remaster of spooky games for Halloween, and then we've got back-to-back Konami games. Because after Silent Hill, which is November 1st, we've got Metal Gear Rising, which is November 15th. So that's also pretty cool. And then we couldn't let it go. So November 29th, we've got Papers, Please coming back.
Can I do Papers, please?
Please let me do the Papers, please. Yeah, November 29th. And after that, I don't know when, but in December, we will have Game of the Year. And we will have the Christmas quiz is coming back with Jack Marshall.
So that's
confirmed.
all our cards are on the table. That's every game we're going to be doing this year.
This year, it's all done. Can't believe it. It's rolled around quick, isn't it?
Yeah, well, you mentioned that to me the other day. You're like, that's it for the year. And I was like, wait, no, what? Because we're in October. I was like, oh, yeah, that lines up.
Yeah, so I guess you can grab Silent Hill 2 Remake if you want to play along. PS5, PC. Are you playing on PC, Joe, or PS5?
I'm on PS5.
Okay, cool. It looks great, doesn't it? Runs great.
Yeah, it's nice. I'm having the same experience as you. I mean, I'm locked in performance mode. I don't know if you're the same.
Yeah, I was in quality mode, but I couldn't really see the difference. So I was like, performance.
Yeah, I could feel the difference in the,
yeah,
the frame rate.
yeah, like moving through water.
Yeah, not that performance mode is smooth, but we'll save that for a couple of weeks.
So yeah, that is everything. That's us.
Cool, awesome. So quick mention that if you didn't know, we do have a Patreon where we do another podcast called Extra Credit, where we chat about all of the other sorts of games that we've been playing. Ollie and I recently went on holiday together. We speak a little bit about that in the Extra Credit that's just gone. I also talk about Nine Souls, which is a Sekiro / Hollow Knight Metroidvania that I've been playing and really enjoying. So if you want to hear me talk about that, we go into that as well. And so if you're interested to find out about that and the other perks you get on Patreon, there's a link down in the description that will explain about all of the different tiers and the benefits you can get.
Also, we talked about all you need is help.
Yeah, yeah, you do.
Anyway, you guys can look that up. That's a little game that we played.
I feel like singing something. If you want to know why I just said that, you're going to have to listen to Extra Credit.
Right. Well, thanks for listening, everyone. And I suppose we'll hear from you in a couple of weeks.
Yep, back in 2 weeks with Silent Hill 2 Remake. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Cheers, everyone. Bye.